Hello and welcome back to Woodhill Park. Right, hello again. You join me at the thought stages of a new project. I've cleared this area where I had my rolling road and my programming track, and I'm now thinking along the lines of a Royal Mail sort of staging point. I did cut up some buildings, well, a building I made a long time ago. I could never find any room for it. I just made it myself. It was this building. You might have seen it on the layout in earlier updates, maybe in the first year I started doing updates on YouTube. I made this and it's pretty much, well, it's made out of junk. I just wanted a warehouse. But there's no more room for this, or there is no room for this on the layout anywhere, so I've had it stored away. But I thought I could make it low relief, so what I did was cut it in half, and I've still got to finish it off a bit, but I literally cut it in half with a Japanese razor saw. So one half is pretty much just brick wall with an entrance at one end, and the other bit has got a few apertures on it for, you know, goods going in and out, and there's an open door at that end. Now I was thinking of having these on this area. I think I would end up having them raised, possibly on the platform, if I make a platform here. But as you can see, it really obscures the station, and I wasn't really warming to that idea because I like the view across the station, so I don't really want to ruin that. And I'm wondering whether I can have just some sort of half building here with it sort of being lost as it goes up to the rafter, because there's a rafter over here. I'll turn the camera around. It seems to be locked, that's it. Yeah, the rafter over here. It's going to butt up against this whether I like it or not. It's just part of having a loft layout. You can't saw these out unless you want the roof to fall on top of you. But or pay a lot of money for somebody to put a big RSJ right down the apex with a big crane that cost you a lot of money. So I'm not going that route, so I have to put up with these. But they're a pain. But you soon learn to duck and dive them and not hit them. Occasionally I walk into them. Anyway, back on topic. Yeah, so I want a building here, but I don't want it to obscure the station. So I'm wondering about just sort of going for half a building and butting it up here. And I don't know, maybe half a building over this side. You know, I'll still leave them so they're removable as well. But I don't want the complete view of the station obscured. So if it's something like that, it won't obscure too much. So half a building and half a building over this side, possibly against this upright as well. And as I just said, I'll be able to remove them as well. So filming won't be a problem. So I want a platform here going out to meet the line, I think, and possibly along so far, just enough to take a couple of mail coaches in there. So that's the plan, but things always evolve as you get stuck in. So I moved my programming track just beneath, and it was easy enough. It's just another shelf beneath. I did have a few people say, why don't you have a pull-out shelf so you can put it in and out, and I have got some runners, but I can't find the other half of the runners, what is on the wooden panel I used to use for a desk. And I think I've used it somewhere to put something on in the loft, but anyway, I decided I didn't really need it. I don't really want it to come out. I'd rather it just sit there anyway, because I only have to bend down and just put the loco on here, or just look underneath and put it on the rolling road. And I'm not continuously using it. It's only if I've got issues or I'm programming the loco. So I thought that was good enough, and that's allowed me to have this space above that I'm starting to work on. So I'll go to work on it. I've got some old wood. I think it is the right sort of thickness for a platform, because I have used it in the past years ago as a platform. That's why it's got brick paper down here. So it's looking a bit rubbishy, but I'll have a look to see if this will fit the sort of area and make it up out of this possibly. I've got some Pico platform edging, and I'll possibly use that so it'll have a concrete edging. I'll have to search that out and see how well it will fit. That's the plan anyway. It's going to be enough to hold 3 coaches in here, and that'll be just a nice platform size, I think, for 3 coaches to be worked on, sort of handling parcels. Will be quite a good sort of size platform. I don't want it the full length. I want it to be sort of different to the platform in the distance for passengers. So my next step is to clear all this scrubland I've done along here so that it sits flat. So a bit of scraping to clear this area, which is a bit of a shame, but you know, the bushes will be saved. They'll go in my bits and pieces, and hopefully we can develop this area. I've decided I don't want any of the clips that is on the Pico platform edging, as it will just interfere with it going flush against the edge of the woodwork. So I'm going to cut all these lugs off. It seems a bit drastic, but I don't want them getting in the way. These ones just snap off quite nicely. The ones at the top I'll have to be more careful with. And I don't even want the join, because the join is raised as well, which will hold it off. So I shall get a knife and flatten that as well. So it's a case of cutting all this off. A bit brutal, I admit, but I think these sets are about £6, so I stand a chance of wasting £6, which I don't think I'm going to, because it won't fit without doing this. Yeah, and then just trim it back with a knife. As I say, I've got one that I did earlier here, So with it all trimmed back, it's going to sit nice and flush against the now what's beginning to take shape, the platform edge. And I'll probably glue it on with something like Evo stick or Yoo-hoo glue. I think is a good option for this sort of thing. An impact adhesive is good for this sort of thing. But yeah, I'll be trimming these a bit more, make sure they all go back nice and flush. Messy job, but all done now. And I used Evo stick again, pushed up tight to the woodwork. One of the hardest bits is to cut this back here, the ballast and some of the undergrowth that is going to butt up against the platform. It's about the width of this wood is the gap between the platform and the rails that's needed. So I've gone along here, scratched with a knife, knowing how much I need to take off. It's heavy going. I mean, I could wet this. If I wet it, now everything's going to come up and I don't want to remove the track. So I'm doing it dry. But my favourite tool for this is called a dreadnought, a really sharp file. As I say, they're called dreadnoughts, and it's well, it's also, I think years ago people used to call them rasps, but it's a handy tool. Allows you to almost sort of chisel along and get rid of the old ballast and go up against the edge, make a straight edge where the platform is going to butt up to. Because you don't want any high spots. I must admit, doing this sort of thing is I enjoy more than making it for the first time, to be honest. Converting the use of something is more challenging. It doesn't matter if I overdo it, because I shall just fill a little bit of gravel in or ballast in front of the platform once I've done it, some fine ballast. But I do want it the same gap all the way along, or less, as I said. Right, it's almost there, so it's a vacuum clean up and we'll see what we got. Right, just to try out, I'm going to try the platform in place, see if there's any high spots. I think I've got a bit more work to do up this end, up here, along here. Need to take a bit more ballast out, but it's almost there. We're again now, I've just put it in place and it's pretty much the fit I want, maybe a little bit more tweaking, but on the whole it's the right sort of fit. The gap between the platform and the wagon is about right. Might want to go in a touch, but I don't want to go in too close in case I take something that's a touch wider up here. And the edging is butting up quite nicely. the gap I get I'll just fill with some very fine ballast, but I've got to weather this, as I said, so I'll screw it down, get it sort of how I want it, then take it back up and weather it all. Well, it's all starting to develop. It's not just in my head now, I'm sort of going beyond that. I've just been a bit creative here with the low relief building, what I was talking about, and I've incorporated the beam from the roof into it, but that will give me a building at the end here, and it shouldn't be in the way of my view across the station. Be it going to have some canopies here, but I propose to have nearly all of this so it's removable. By doing this, I leave a sort of an opening for literally an open way into this sort of storage shed for the raw mail. I can now build a ramp and sort of a loading bay at this end, just at the end of the station. Excuse me, I've suddenly got the sniffles. I think that's all the dust. Been sawing up a bit of wood here and there, so I've got to make good all this end, but that looks quite promising. Makes use of that building as well. As I said, it was a scratch build a long while ago, and it was a shame just to not use it in any way at all, but hopefully this will be a way of using it. It's starting to take shape. I've countersunk these below the platform, so I'm going to put some iridite in these and level them, so when I paint them they'll just look like rough patches on the platform, or they'll just disappear, one or the other. So I'm going to have a bit of plan about filling and sort of roughing up the surface. I do wonder whether to do the same with this one. I might do the same, just cut into it and have it sort of here, so I'll put another bit of platform here and then pull it back so it's going over this beam. Right, we're back and it's the next day. I've just given this a coat of paint, my favourite paint. And let's move the dust cap out of the way, dangling underneath. My favourite paint, which I used to get from Wilco, but I shan't be getting it anymore. But I did get a big 2.5 litre can of it, and I think it's called Urban Nights, and it makes very good sort of coloured tarmac, we'll say. So I can mess this up, weather it up, but this is a base coat, and I filled the holes, but I filled them sort of rough, and there's a split in the tarmac, as these are two pieces of pre-used platform made of wood that I've pushed together. So I'll leave that gap, because that looks like just a gap where the tarmac's been produced in two sections. I've also been working on this part of it and trying to work out what I was going to do, and I decided on a loading bay here where they would offload and load the mail. And I've been working on the excuse me, the warehouse that's going to sit here. So got a bit of corporate labouring, and if you move the truck back, it sits nicely up a little slope, and its back doors are pretty much level with the bay sort of floor. There's a guy with a box just to show what I intend this to be used like. So the mail will be delivered here, or loaded here to go to a depot nearby for distribution, coming off the trains or going onto the trains, whichever it is. Well, time's moved on, and I've got a certain way forward with the Royal Mail yard, and I'm going to put some security fencing in along here. I've seen people make it online, and the best thing I've seen really is the aluminium mesh that you used to use for patching up your car years ago. You still can get it, and I suppose it's used for a similar thing, but it works very well as a chain link fence, so I'm going to have a go at making some of that. Right, you now join me at my rather messy bench, and what I've been doing is cutting up a sheet of this, which looks very much like a chain link fence. Excuse me. And I've been bending up some posts. I don't know what I'm going to do about barbed wire at the top, because that will be a bit of fine work that I need to deal with later on, I think, whether it'll be cotton or what. But I've been making these posts out of 2mm square bar, plastic bar that I bought online. I bought it from these guys, and just painting it with some Vallejo paint, letting it dry, and then, well, before I paint it actually, I've been bending the tip of them. It's roughly about 10mm from the top at probably about 45-degree angle, and they bend and stay in position really nicely. So I'm now going along and using a scale ruler to work out what looks a good gap for the eye. I don't know what the actual gaps exactly would be, but when you go down in scale, certain things don't look right even if they are the right size. So I'm going on what looks right, and it's worked out about 14 foot between posts to look like this. And I like the look of that. I think any closer they wouldn't look right, and further apart they probably wouldn't look right either. So I managed to super glue a join of these mesh cutouts, you might say, and with some super glue. It took a bit of doing to get it to take, but then I glue a post on the back just over the join, so that sort of covered up the join, and 2 of these lengths should be about the right length what I need. I painted the inside as well, even though they're glued on the outside, just to fool your eye into thinking the posts are visible this side and the fence is going between them. But in reality, obviously, it's glued on the inside, because it would be a bit difficult to glue between them. It would mean putting individual panels in, which would take quite a while, and it would have a job. I would have a job trying to fix them between posts. So if you don't look too closely, they do look like the posts on this side as well as the other side. Anyway, it's all a theory and experimentation really. So the proof will be in what it looks like when it's fitted up onto the layout. Up this end of the Royal Mail Depot platform, I've got a disused, well, barely used slope to allow vehicles off scene to come up a slope onto the platform, but it doesn't get used very often, and it's all overgrown with moss and other small weeds and stuff, just to make it look unkept. At the moment this warehouse has just got a little bit of blue tack under, black tack, beg your pardon, black tack under this brick wall, just in a couple of spots just to hold it in place, but I can remove it if I want to. And I've not tacked this fencing down, it's just left loose. I don't know how I'm going to get on with it if I want to remove it to do any filming, but it's connected to the warehouse at this end, and this warehouse will lift up, so it will lift up and lift the fence out at the same time. So at the moment I'm just leaving it like this so I can remove it. Got my 1980s advertising boards in place, Shinzano. With Joan Collins, of course. And another big sort of 80s campaign of advertising was Foster's. Which used to be Paul Hogan advertising it, so I don't know who this guy is. Somebody's standing in for him. But rather than have just the blank backs of the warehouses looking at me, I thought it'd be nice to have some 80s billboards facing out towards me. I don't know what I'll do with this little strip of land along here. I don't know whether to just grass it or whether put another fence in front and make it some sort of alleyway. I'm not sure where it will be going, if it's an alleyway along here, but maybe you've got some ideas. There's always little bits and pieces like this that take a little bit of thought to finish off. So any comments, providing they're clean ones and constructive, are welcome. Just a question of adding more detail now. Some of it actual bits and pieces I'll buy, maybe 3D printed stuff. It's not finished. As I often say, it's never finished. You can always add more, so I shall continue to add bits and pieces as I go, as I come across them at toy fairs and other various places. I've had a go at making a canopy for the area. Done a bit of kit bashing, and kit I've been bashing is not this one. This one's fairly new, but it's an old one where it's just the roof and all the pillars have been lost or broken, and cut it down, played about with it, bashed it around, as I say, and this is what I've come up with. So I think this is pretty good. The pillars, I think, are old triangle pillars for holding the track up, for some sort of coal hopper set or something like that from years ago. But the pillars are pretty good, stable sort of supports for this cut down roof, and I'm pretty pleased with this. Needs a bit of weathering and playing about with, and eventually I'll add some lighting to it. I didn't do it on camera because I wasn't sure whether it was going to just fall to bits as I was cutting it, which it did to a certain degree, but I managed to keep it all together and put back what did fall off. The odd pane fell out. I mean, this was just going to waste in my sort of junk box really, so come in pretty handy, and I think it looks the part. And with the fencing back in front of it, it's not so open and viewable, but it creates the effect that I want. This sort of fenced off depot. I've also got it in my head that I want to do some signage in places, and keep thinking I've seen something like this with sort of numbers on different bays where the mail is being distributed. Maybe I've imagined it somewhere, I might have seen it in a bit of footage. I've had a look and I can't really tell, but maybe somebody who's worked for Royal Mail might be able to enlighten me what sort of detailing there was underneath a cover like this. I'm having a go at making some detachable lights to go underneath the canopy for the Royal Mail depot, and I've come up with this sort of assembly, which is a post which the wires will travel down, and some LEDs stuck on the LED strips you can buy, and the wiring going through and being joined on the top, which I'm going to put some quick drying Aerodite on to cover up. Then I propose to paint this all black and sort of lose all the wiring and just leave the LEDs so they're not black, obviously. And this will stand on the platform, and then the canopy will go over the top. That's what I propose, and then that will allow me to remove the canopy at any time without having the hassle of unplugging anything or unwiring anything, because this will just sit underneath and it will look like it's part of the canopy once the canopy's on top of it. That's my little plan anyway. I finished this assembly and decided to paint it grey, not black, just so it would blend in a bit more with the grey platform and the grey canopy in different places. And I'll now put the canopy over the top. This is what I proposed, is to have this just sitting like this, and then the canopy just comes down and sits centrally over it, and that will allow me at any point to remove this canopy to do anything, move figures around or add different bits and pieces to this Royal Mail platform where all the guys are working hard dealing with the mail and other bits and pieces, newspapers and other stuff what used to get shipped around the network. I was going to hold fire on lighting this area, but I couldn't wait to add some lighting just to see what the atmosphere would be like with it lit. So I sort of persevered and carried on and sort of done the lighting on this area. I could add some more lighting to the warehouses and other bits and pieces, but this is lit, which I'll show you in a minute. I'll just turn the lights off and turn the layout lights on. And with the layout lights on, this area comes alive. And the level of light I think is just right. If I was to turn the other loft lights off, so we just got the lights on the layout, it looks quite good. So that's pretty much a night scene with the guys working away with the carriages in the background for the Royal Mail. And there's a ground level look through the fencing into the workplace as the guys are busy dealing with the mail. I think that's come out pretty good. If I spin the camera around, a pretty good scene. I got some more bits and pieces on the way, some 3D printed stuff and trolleys and bits and pieces, but I think that looks pretty good, and I'm really pleased with it. And up the sort of semi-disused end, I've got some floodlights just above it, some discarded brutes in front of the warehouse door, and a lorry sitting up there waiting for whatever it's waiting for. So I think that end looks pretty good as well. And if I spin round, you can see where it all resides, just above where I've got my control system, and this fills up this area rather nicely, really. So there's no wasteland here no more as such, except for a little bit in front of this fencing. And this is the overall effect you get as you look across the mail depot and the platforms with the station buildings in the background. That's it for this one. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed this project and I still continue to enjoy it. So until next time, thank you very much. Bye for now.